to decide on whether I wear my glasses or not, because I need it for like the close-up stuff, but then it kind of gets blurry. Everyone's smiling out there. Okay. Well, we are excited to be together again. This is 2 weeks after our part 1 training, and today we're going to do part 2. So who could tell us what part 1 was about in a nutshell? Or what do we call that? Direct service, philosophy, okay? Today we're doing direct instruction, okay? So part 1 is some of those building blocks of how to work with the student, or to set that stage, get them ready for teaching, okay? So today we're going to cover teaching. How do we teach skills, okay? We have our mission, values, and philosophy, so we know why we're here. We know our outcomes. We've identified our outcomes, so we know what we're trying to teach at Scenic View. Today in the training, we're going to cover the how. How do we go about teaching our students? There'll be a part 3 training that we'll need to develop. It might take some more work, and that's, well, what do we do when our students don't adhere, when we try this teaching model and it's still not working, right? And so that one will be probably a little bit more robust, and we'll put a little more time putting that one together. Let's see. So the Marty's quote, "We are all teachers." Again, this is not just for teaching in a classroom, right? We are all we're skill specialists. We're here to teach students, okay? So this is a training that applies to each and every one of us. Just to define direct instruction, so student-centered, teacher-led, structured, and sequenced. And we'll be sharing with you, I don't think we passed it out yet, a teaching model that we're going to use at Scenic View. So instead of, I know in the past we've gone over different teaching models, we'll have a structured way that we will go about teaching students at Scenic View. Again, without that focus of skill mastery, that the student can do that skill on their own. That's what our focus will be. And let's see, and this is how that applies at Scenic View, that we want to empower, or how Scenic View specialists empower students to master new information and skills. I mentioned this in the first training. Like, part of these trainings are not just trainings we have and then put on a bookshelf. This is, again, part of what our program will be. It's part of our program identity. When you're talking to other professionals or other people and they're saying, how do you do what you do? Today's training will be, could be part of that answer for how we do what we do at Scenic View. Okay.
Okay, we're going to have Marie Foster come up really quick and talk about accommodations, because this is kind of a background to the whole model. Before we dive into the model, I want to talk about that baseline, that assessment.
Okay, the most important thing I need to stress is that many assessments have been done before you guys even see the students. So make sure that you look on Best Notes, especially my Woodcock-Johnson 4, because if you don't want to read through the whole thing, at least at the end, there's a summary and accommodations for the student. And if you incorporate that, it can make the difference between success and failure. For example, every student has a list of recommendations and accommodations, and a lot of them are common with all the students. They'll share the same kind of accommodations, but they are individual based on the testing that I do. The majority of the students here have processing speed deficits. I'd say 99%. I don't know why. I don't know how that's related. For example, I just did testing with 2 of the new ones that are coming in January. Caitlin Hare, her processing speed is at 52, which means she's at the first percentile. Out of 100 students, 99 would have better processing speed ability than she does. Everything else is in the low average range, but that processing speed is just really, really bad. So you'll need to make accommodations for her. As far as, I want to skip this one and go to the next one. I'm going to go back. Providing extended time, keeping directions short and simple. The most important thing you can do is check for understanding. Make sure that she understands what you're asking her to do. And above all, give her more time. because she's just going to be slower. And another student that I tested, Eric Taylor, he has auditory processing disorder. So his listening skills are really low, which is going to look similar to this. So you need to keep the instructions short and brief and make sure that he understands what you're talking about as well. So this can make the difference between success and failure. I'll never forget, I had a 6th grade student who was referred for testing because he was struggling in the classroom, and it looked like he had listening skills problems. So I sent him to the district audiologist, and they did further testing. He came up with a central auditory processing disorder, and the only accommodation we made was that the teacher checked for understanding. She made sure that he understood what did I ask you to do? Now, do you understand the assignment? And he went from F's to A's. So it's just simple tweaks that you can make that make the student more successful. How do I go back? I know to go forward. Okay. Okay, most of the accommodations on the Woodcock-Johnson 4, for example, are going to be input accommodations. That's the providing extended time. A lot of them will benefit from peer shared notes or lecture notes, visual aids. Master teachers incorporate all of the learning modalities. You don't just get up and talk. In junior high and high school, a lot of kids struggle because the teachers do just lecture. Whereas elementary school, it's all hands-on and different kind of modalities. So here we want to incorporate everything as much as we can. A lot of students think better when they're moving, so you might let them move around. Output accommodation is making sure that they can give you the information in a way that is their strength. For example, some students have a hard time writing, so you could have them answer you verbally. I had a friend who got his doctorate degree. He's a terrible writer, but they let him do his, whatever that is, when you get your doctorate degree, the final, just answering questions. He didn't have to write. So accommodations are fair. A lot of people think, oh, that's not fair, because it's different, but it's leveling the playing field, so everybody has equal opportunity, okay? And then environmental accommodations could be making sure the room's quiet. Some students need music to think, so maybe earphones. An interesting accommodation, I taught math one year, and one kid was brilliant in math. I had it all individualized from like single digit addition to trig, because it was an 8th grade class and there was a big range. And this one kid I had was absolutely brilliant with math, and he chewed gum. He just would chomp, chomp, chomp gum. And since then I've read studies that show that if they're learning math, gum really helps. So always and students, like another environmental things, make sure they're hydrated, drink lots of water. So that also helps the brain. So anyway, simple things that you can do. Don't get overwhelmed as a instructor, but simple things you can do to help them be successful. And familiarize yourself with all the accommodations that would help the student be successful before you even meet them. You'll be proactive. You'll be successful. The student will be successful. So thanks. Yeah, always incorporate them.
Okay, we're going to be diving into our direct instruction model, but I need 2 volunteers to help me pass these out so everybody can get them. Thanks, Janine. Thanks, Aaron. Hopefully there should be plenty. All right, so this is your 4th and final gift today. Now, you'll keep getting gifts, hopefully, through this entire presentation. Now, while we're handing these out, I'll notice that some of you did write your topic on your sticky note. But just take a second, because this model is going to make a ton more sense if you will write down a topic that you're actually going to teach using this, and we're going to walk you through it. So pick something really simple, something maybe you're already comfortable teaching, or something that maybe you've struggled with a little in the past, but something pretty short, something pretty simple. Somebody give me some examples of the kind of topics you might pick. Give me a topic that you might teach on for just a few minutes with a student. Yeah, Ernest.
How to write a resume.
How to write a resume, thank you. Who else? Give me another topic that you could teach on. Yeah.
How much SSI you're going to get.
How much SSI you're going to get.
By
Good. Calculating it. Good. What else? How to prepare a balanced meal. Good. Anything you do. Now, if you're a service coordinator, what might be something that you would work on with a student, that you would teach them, that they need to understand?
I still look compiled, but how to use Google to
Perfect. How to use Google Schedules, right? Perfect. There's every single thing we do with the student, we're giving them, hopefully empowering them with the ability to do something they haven't been able to do before. And every one of those things we'd like to teach through this direct instructional model. Now, we'll be modeling this direct instruction model throughout today as we're doing this. We're helping you to adjust. We're going to have Ryan be going through objectives and setting objectives and task analysis. Barbara will be talking about modeling and demonstrating. Joanna will be talking about guided and independent practice. Jane will be talking about assess, evaluate, and adjust, and I'll come in and fill in some of these other things. But these 5 main steps, this is the cycle of direct instruction. And if you look at the research for executive functioning, if you look at the research for academics, if you look at the research for almost any skill, direct instruction has the highest success rate of actually helping achieve skill mastery with the student. And if you're a behaviorist or that kind of thing, you dig even into the little deep nitty-gritty of these pieces with what you're doing. But it's all very, very effective. Today, for sake of time, we're going to mainly stick with this inner circle. But that outer circle is not to be neglected. What are some of the things on the outer circle? It's afternoon, but you're going to be participatory. Yes, Ben?
Motivation.
Motivation. Thank you, Ben. Good. Accommodation, which Marie just talked about. What else?
Evaluation and review.
Good. Evaluation, so testing and review activities. Learning styles, okay, that open door we will talk a little tiny bit about today. Motivation. These are all things that are pretty critical. There's some other things you might want to consider side dishes too, but they're on your actual lesson plan template. You'll see a whole bunch of check boxes. Now these check boxes on the bottom are instructional groupings, modalities, and strategies. In your lesson, as you think about your topic, look through those and go ahead and check a couple that you think might be useful things you could use as you're talking to them. So is this going to be just something they do independently? Or is this something going to be a project-based or hands-on? Can I make it a group thing? Is there reading involved? Can I involve some senses, visuals, graphics, writing? Are we going to take a field trip? Again, if it fits for what you're doing today, great. Check some boxes there. If you aren't checking any boxes, ask yourself, could this activity be even better if I did some of those things? And on the right-hand side there, you'll notice it talks about multiple intelligences. Again, that's a totally separate training, but our students have, as part of the assessments Marie talked about, have been assessed to identify their relative strengths in different learning areas. And these multiple intelligences are one great way to look at how to help them. So let's take a really obvious one. If you're Jonathan Shipley, guess what his multiple intelligence #1 strength identified was? Music is correct. So if you're working with Jonathan, giving him opportunities to do outputs with music, to have music involved with what he's trying to learn, it's really helpful. If I was working with Jonathan one-on-one, man, we'd be trying to come up with songs to memorize everything I'm trying to teach him, because boy, that guy, he loves songs and he can remember lyrics, but he can't remember what you told him 2 seconds ago sometimes. So we love him, it's great, but think about how you can involve those different learning styles, different flavors, those different activities, those different groupings, those different strategies throughout your lesson. Spices it up, it adds a lot more to it, and it makes it more of a real meal. Okay? All right, so without further ado then, we're going to go ahead and dive into our instructional model with that first piece, objectives and task analysis.
Okay, so you can see there right on the instructional model some questions underneath objective and a question underneath task analysis. So objective, what will they be able to do? In task analysis, what are the right steps? So this is something that, before this point, we can assume there's already been seen a few assessments that have been done and a plan that's been put in place, and as skill specialists, we're stepping in, and there's already, kind of like a step on the map that we have, okay? When you look at, do you have that laminated? There you go. No, you're fine. All right. So from the map, you would just plug in that, step from the map right here in that first box. That's what that is for, okay? And at that point, sometimes we still need to break down that step for a student. So if it's, the goal or the step is to, help a balanced meal, one of the steps might be make a I think, one of the famous things people use or common things is how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when they're trying to teach this, right? So that would be one of the steps, right? Or one of the things you might break down as someone's learning how to do a meal, is you would teach them how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's talk about objectives, task analysis, and I'll use that a little bit as an example. Okay, so an objective is a description of the student at the end of the instruction. Okay, so when you're sitting down with the student, what is it that you want the student to do by after we're done teaching? What is that kind of outcome, that objective that we're shooting for? Today's objective, and here's just kind of an example of how to write an objective. It says, by the end of this training, each staff member will create an effective, efficient, empowering lesson plan and teach it at least once. And here's just 3 kind of components of an objective. So we listed the context. It's in this training. We use a strong verb, create, teach, and then an observable outcome, the lesson plan itself. All right. Now, my favorite part of all this is task analysis. All right. So step 1 of task analysis is to identify the objective. The second thing you do is you take that objective and you break that down into steps. And this is a skill that we want every skill specialist to get better at. We want you to be the expert on doing this in your skill area. So if kind of an example of how to do this, again, going back to the peanut butter and jelly, is watching a video. If you were to videotape someone making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and replay it and cut the volume off, what would be your description? I had an awful experience in 4th grade where it was the first time I remember actually being excited to do homework, because my teacher said, for homework, the only thing you have to do today is write down how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I did it on the bus on the way home. I probably wrote 3 steps, and I'm done, and I just played the rest of the day. It was a great day. I didn't have to do any homework at home. I did it. It was bus work. And so the teacher the next day gets up and pulls out mine. Out of the whole class, happens to pull out mine, probably as the worst example. I didn't understand task analysis back then. And so she pulled out a piece of bread. Oh, no, she pulled out the bread, and then she took the peanut butter and put the peanut butter, the whole peanut butter on top of the bread, and smashing the bread. And, it's a traumatic experience, actually, for me, because humiliated in front of the whole class. Luckily, she didn't use my name or anything. What's that? Now you're allergic. I'm allergic to peanut butter, bread, jelly. Okay. So peanut butter and jelly is kind of an oversimplified example. But if we were to sit down with a student and we were going to break up peanut butter and jelly down into smaller steps, what could happen if we break them up into too many steps, more steps than the student might need? Okay, boring, right? It's not that optimal level of challenge. It'd be like a video game that just has no reinforcement. It's just so easy that there's no challenge at all. Right?
It's also confusing because I think your brain can only hold on to so many steps. So if you break it into too many sub-steps, then you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. If there's 1,000 steps,
Yeah.
pinch fingers together, twist jelly cap to the left, 45 degrees. No. Yeah, you can overdo it, right? But what happens if you don't break down the task in enough steps? The step's too big. Okay. Stuck. Mm-hmm. So what do both extremes do to a student's motivation?
Makes them think they're bad at what they're doing.
Yeah.
Self-motivation.
Yeah. Both would be frustrated in different ways, may cause different emotions. So it's one of these things that we're, anytime we're going to teach a student, that we're kind of evaluating how much do they need this broken down. Let's break it down into those steps, and then we'll kind of go through. Everyone else kind of go through what you do from there once those steps are broken down. Let me just cover a couple more points here. This is kind of those things that we're talking about here. So you want to identify a baseline. When it comes to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, what if a student already knows how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Then let's not teach it. But in order to know the baseline, we may have to watch them do it the first time, right? And okay, we can see that they're doing it independently. Okay, you can move on. All right? Or they might know how to do some of the steps that we'll be able to, if we do a task analysis, we'll know what we're looking for, and we can almost like check it off. Yeah, they know step 1, step 2, step 3 they're struggling with, and step 6 they're struggling with. And then when you go to do the teaching, you can just go straight to those steps of what they still need to learn. If needed, if you put the task analysis together, right, the sequence might already be kind of intuitive. You did the task analysis in a sequence. But after doing a baseline, you may want to just look at the steps and make sure it's in the order that makes sense for that student. And when you're going to sit down, just pick the steps you're going to cover that day. So, let's see. I think I covered. Oh, another thing that's just, when you look at like best practices for autism, you'll see task analysis listed quite a bit. So this is a skill that, again, it's a tool you want to add to your toolbox to be able to do task analysis. Break things down into observable steps. It's one of the things that's key in having a measurable program, is to be able to write things into steps that can be measurable. All right, and we'll go deeper into this in our part 3 training. Now I'm going to explain this slide real quick. So you're going to, after each one of us presents, again, since we're kind of walking through this process together, you're going to see a slide like this. And if I don't explain it, it might be a little bit confusing, okay? Because right here at the top, you're going to see guided practice, right, which is one of the steps on the teaching model. And right here, objective. So you're seeing 2 different parts of the teaching model on one slide. So the top part right now is, as instructors, we are going to do a guided practice with you as you write your objective. Okay? Does that make sense? So right now, we want you to take 2 minutes, look at what you have on your.
Do you want everyone to write the objective the exact same format, or can they all do their own thing? If 2 slides back, you have strong verb, etc. You should put some examples on the whiteboard. You know what I'm saying? You want
Well, we're going to come around, and so all of us are going to come around and observe
I know, but
and guide.
I don't know if you guys know enough to write an instruction. You know, you want everyone to write it the same way or something.
Well, not the same objective, but yeah, the same. Yeah, using the context. Yeah, those 3 steps. I'll go back after this slide. Do you want to say something?
Anybody want to share a possible objective you've got? Or a topic that you've got you're trying to translate into an objective? Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Help the student add it anything on the Google Calendar.
Okay, so Google Calendar. All right. So you're meeting with students. What would be the context? Where are they going to be? You know, what's going to happen when they actually have achieved this objective? So, like, where are they going to use that?
Well, in our context, we need to put it on a schedule for the classes.
All right. So, when I ask you schedule, a class. This is your context. Student will. And what is it that they're, come on, just go back to that slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. The student will, what's the verb? What are they going to do with this? Again, the strong verb here just means something really clear. What are they actually going to be doing on Google Calendar?
The schedule, the verb.
Yeah, okay, the schedule will enter. Okay, I like that. Enter. There's my verb. And we've got our outcome. What is that observable outcome? What are they going to enter that you're going to be able to see?
It's going to show up, the event will show up on our calendar.
give it a bit, right? All right, we can schedule the class, right? Now we can refine this, we go through this a little bit more. But you see, it has those 3 steps. So if you're now going to work with the student, I know what I'm doing, okay? I know that I'm going to be able to prompt them to schedule. I know that at that point then they're going to be able to open the app and enter and make an entry for that class or that event, right? Does that make sense? You're going to do that with any topic, any objective you've got. And we're going to be asking everybody to do that right there in the little blank given. And if you need more space, again, try and refine it. But get your objective nice and simple and put on there. Yeah. Good. Okay, hopefully you've all got your objective now. And again, this is something that we're just using for today on a very small scale. You could make an objective for a full week, or you could have an objective for an entire month. It wouldn't necessarily be as effective, but you can. Generally, this is for a class period, a meeting, or an interaction. But let's say you've done it now. Okay? You've got your objective, you've broken it down, you're on the right step of the task analysis for this student or these students, and you are ready to roll, you're ready to get in there and teach. And as we get into the model, we want to do that. But right between this and starting into the model practice, we're ready to teach. How do you get your student ready to learn?
You might have to calm them down a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, you might have to calm them down, refocus them a little, right?
Yeah. Just wait a little bit. Sometimes I have to wait a little bit. There's a conversation going on, and then, okay, let's start now.
Okay, yeah. Looking for them. You've got to get them open. You've got to, what else? What else do you got to do to get them ready to learn?
Buy-in.
Buy-in, get some buy-in, okay? So one of those, one of the cool pieces that would be under motivation is starters on your model. And it's definitely on your lesson plan template. Because when we're ready to give the instruction, we have to get the student ready to receive that instruction, right? So this is sometimes called an anticipatory set, setting their anticipation for what's going to come. It's a hook, a way to draw them in. A lot of times this is a review. This is a great way to just hook back to what they learned before. It's an activity, it's a story, it's a film. What are some things you guys do to get them excited about learning? Whatever it is. Something funny, good. Tell a joke, tell a story, yeah.
It's nice to actually know them so that when you can relate it to an experience that's important to them.
Those are the most motivational, right? If you can connect it right with something that's important to them or that's motivational for them, good. Yeah, Dorothy.
Some sort of check-in or experiential activity.
Yeah, an activity, experiential activity, a check-in, anything like that. Music, movie clips, whatever it needs to be, right? An effective starter is going to connect them with what they already know, and it's going to give them it's often a review. It's going to give them purpose or context. Our students need to have a why. Why is it that I'm learning this? Why is it you're asking me to be able to call a pharmacist and renew my medications? My mom always does that for me, right? Whatever it happens to be. And it primes them now for the lesson you're going to be giving them. So very quickly, I just want to show you a very short starter. And Robert, I don't know if we can get the volume here down on the room volume down, but this is from a class I used to teach, and I still do this as part of educational exploration. We assess students on their learning styles, and one of the things we want them to understand is what is the definition of being smart, and what is your learning style. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to give Howard Gardner's definition of intelligence and name the 2 parts of learning style. All right? And so I started off with this kind of starter. Talk to him about Derek Parvicini. British kid, if you know who he is, don't raise your hand. But he's born premature. His twin died in the hospital. He survived, but they gave him a massive oxygen dose to do that. He's totally blind. It also damaged his brain. And I don't know why it's doing this. Hold on. Oh. He is autistic We know what autism is, but he's severely impacted by it. He has real struggles with motor skills, getting dressed, feeding himself. He can't count to 10, tell his left from right, very low IQ. Can't answer simple questions like, have you ever been to New York before? And I asked the students, is this guy smart? Now, most of the students are like, he's got to be, or you wouldn't be bringing him up, right? But they're struggling to figure out, like, well, like, how, why? And now they're listening, okay? Because we've got a little story about Derek here. They're now willing to pay a little attention and say, well, what does it mean? And then I play this little clip for them. Thank you, Robert.
The thing I'd like to do most of all is to play the piano again.
This is Derek.
Why do you like playing the piano?
Obviously not super great at communication.
Is it to play good with arpeggios nicely? Is it good? The rumba. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Derek Paravicini is completely blind and severely learning impaired.
I'm going to do Flight of the Bumblebee by Rimsky-Korsakov.
Simultaneously, on 2 pianos.
He also displays many of the signs of autism. Yet his brain is a perfectly programmed musical computer. What does it mean to be a musical genius in the wake of such a profound disability?
So how is Derek smart? Musically. The guy's a genius. In fact, that's what it's called. What does it mean when we say someone's smart? And now I've asked a question and I've shown this, and then I usually show them some examples, and we go right into Howard Gardner's definition of intelligence, being able to solve problems or create a product that adds value. And we talk about how they're smart because they all can solve problems or create value. We talk about the 2 different parts of a learning style. Notice that there's an input part, and on your lesson plan it talks about using as many of the senses as possible when you're teaching, especially with our students who struggle with processing. Having multiple senses involved can be really, really effective. And then your outputs, once you brought the information in, there's those 9 different multiple intelligences there. Again, they're listed on your template that are things then that they can be doing to help maximize their ability to demonstrate learning and add value and so forth. So, how does this connect with their previous learning? Well, they've all asked the question, how am I smart? Or what does it mean to be smart, right? They have some idea of what it means to be blind or to not be able to count to 10. They have told a story of that. How did my starter give a purpose or a context for what we're about to learn? How did it give them a why? Yeah, if smarts is something so unique and individual, I might be willing to look at this and see how I am smart. And they're now ready to start looking at their own personal learning and their own personal learning styles and strengths. So again, a really simple example, but as I've now modeled it, I've given you an example of it. I want to move into giving you a chance to start your starter. So it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be a film clip, it can be as simple as reviewing. It can be as simple as a question, it can be as simple as a story. It can be simple as, Ernest, why would I want to learn a resume?
Because it'll get you a job.
Because it'll give me a job. And it can be as simple as that. Hi, would you like to get a job? Do you want to apply for that job over there? Okay, you need a resume. That's an anticipatory set. So take 2 minutes and just write down an anticipatory set. We'll be coming around, we'll talk. Sorry, a starter. Any kind of little starter you want to do that helps prime them for that learning and gets them attentive and ready for that. Okay? It needs to lead to the objective so that by the end of that starter, they're like, okay, now I'm ready for resume. Now I'm ready for learning styles. Now I'm ready for whatever it happens to be. She's awesome to quickly share her objective and her starter for us really quick. Go ahead, Sarah. Loud voice so they can hopefully pick it up on the
So am I sharing the objective, the SMART step, and the starter?
Sure.
Okay. So the SMART step is understand monthly SSI amount and how how to calculate the objective. The objective is to be able to calculate, calculate it or know, how much they will receive in SSI. And then there's a link to a fun little calculator to have. And then my starter is who likes money? Who realizes that money, whether you like it or not, is a necessity of life? Who worries about money?
Okay, and now your student's ready to go, wait a second. Money, okay, I'm listening. And when I taught math, a lot of my anticipatory sets had to do with money. Because otherwise it was like, don't want to learn this. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to share their starter activity that they wrote down? Again, it can be really simple. Ben's was simply, hey, you've been asked to mow the lawn. Today we're going to learn how to start a lawnmower. It relates to real life, exactly why they need this, and says and prepares them for the learning. It can be really simple. It does not have to be a big deal. And in fact, in small, short amounts of time, it usually does need to be really simple. Anybody else want to share a starter? Kylie.
Mine's when you have to prepare a meal, balanced meal. So mine was like watching a video of how food affects you positively and negatively.
Good. And videos usually tend to grab our students' attention because they're very visual. Thank you very, very much. Okay, moving on to the next piece. Now you've got your objective, you're starting it off, and you're ready to move into modeling and demonstrating.
Okay, the next thing, the teaching portion is really divided into 3 sections. First one is I do it, then we do it together, and then you do it alone. So I'm going to talk about the I do it, which is the modeling part. There are 2 main components to a modeling. First, the demonstrating or the showing part, and the second one is the describing or the tell. So it's really a show and tell. So you should be talking as you are demonstrating. So you kind of do a think aloud why you are demonstrating what you're doing. Next part, a good model is clear, consistent, and concise. So you're using really simple phrases. You don't want to get too much language in there, especially with a lot of our students who struggle with auditory processing. That's why today we're going to be sorting laundry. So I've already written on the board what the 3 steps that we are going to do. So it's very clear, concise, this is what we're going to do. You might want to include several demonstrations. So you do it again, you do it again, depending on are they understanding what you're doing? How many times do I need to do this for the student to really understand? And the third one is you need to involve the student along the way. So you're asking questions. You're kind of trying to still engage them and pull them into the process while you are doing it. So we chose something simple, but something that you might teach. So we chose sorting laundry. So I will now model that process. Okay, last week we learned about how to determine if when clothes are dirty and what you should do with them. And we talked about, we decided if it's dirty, we put it in the hamper. So now I've kind of reviewed what we learned last week. So now we have this hamper full of dirty clothes that we have to decide now we're ready to put it in the washing machine. So there are 3 steps to sorting our laundry. First, we're going to put them into 3 piles. How many piles? 3 piles. We're going to sort them in to number 1 is the whites. What's the first one? White. Right. Okay, I'm going to sort through my laundry. Here I have this pillowcase. It's white. That goes in the white pile. I have a dish towel, and it is dirty, so we're going to put it in the white. Socks, definitely white. Let's see, check. I've got 1 more white sock here. Okay, so I've got my white pile. Second step is I'm going to look for brights. What's my second step? Brights. Okay, does this look bright? Pretty bright. Green. I'll put that in my next pile. Yellow, definitely bright. Oh gosh, I have this purple one. Can't decide. Is it dark? Is it bright? What do you think? Dark. I think it's dark too, so we're going to do dark. Why do you think it's important to separate them into 3 piles? Anybody have any ideas? Why are we doing this, Ben?
Because thing, if you look at the color can wash out for me.
Right. Okay, if we don't separate it into piles, these could all be blue, and I want white socks. So that's why it's important to keep them into 3 separate parts. All right, keep sorting here. The rest of these are darks. Okay, so I have sorted my laundry into 3 piles. I've got whites, brights, and darks. Okay, so then we would do it again if needed, okay? So was I consistent and clear and concise, using the same 3 steps? And I won't do more than one demonstration, but trying to involve the student as you're doing it. I think this is a step sometimes we skip. We forget that we just verbally tell the students, well, this is how you do it. This is how you start a lawnmower. And I've just told you, so you should know. But it's important that you actually demonstrate it so that they can actually visually see it. You might have steps along with the verbal part as well. Okay, any questions on that?
Is there anywhere in the assessments that helps us understand their learning styles? Like the kinesthetic or interpersonal or?
Let's see, where's Jared? We do that.
On the one Aaron sends out, the info note, just pull it up, it's right there. Also, every student should have a copy of that, and they talked about it. But it needs a lot more reinforcement, obviously.
Okay, so the next part is for the guided practice, decide what you are going to model with your Elaine's. Okay, so what are you going to actually show?
Diagram, Elaine, just show it.
Yeah. What are you going to show? And maybe this is where the task analysis is also important, because you are kind of setting those steps, making clear steps for the student to understand the process of what you're trying to show them. And you're doing that think aloud as you're demonstrating it. Okay, so go ahead and work on the next section, the model part. And we'll come around and help you.
Okay, we got to move right along. Does anybody need any more help with their model activity? Their model practice? Anybody want to share what they're doing for their model practice? Ben's going to demonstrate starting a mower while he talks them through it. Anybody? Lita, would you like to share your model? You're such an excellent model. But what's your model practice what's your objective in your model practice work?
Helping someone communicate more positively. Why is it important to speak more positively? So you can have friends, and then what we're going to do is talk about what it looks like. We're going to role play back and forth. Is that what we're going for?
Good. Well, yeah, you've already moved on into guided practice. You're doing great. That's a great segue for us.
Okay.
But in that model practice, I saw a lot of you candidly just like, and I'm done. A lot of you, I noticed, were already like starting to do little social stories or whatever to talk about for your model, to talk about a real life instance where this was a useful skill or whatever. That's really powerful with our students. Anyway, now you've modeled, now comes the biggest piece, guided practice and independent practice. And it's the meat of our instruction.
This is where we're going to spend more of our time, is in the we do it together mode. This is the meat and potatoes of the whole balanced meal. And we've already seen the modeling. Now we're going to do guided practice and sorting whites, brights, and darks. So I need a student. Marty, would you be my student, please?
Yes.
Now we've already seen how we're going to do this, but we're going to do this together.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I'm going to find a white, and I'm going to put my white in my one pile right there. Now, you find a white and put it in your pile. Okay. There might be some more white. I'll see, dig down and see if I can find a white.
There were some socks in there.
Here's a white, goes in my white pile. You find a white, goes in your white pile. There you go. Okay, now we've got to do brights. I'm going to find something bright and put it in my bright pile. Now you find something bright and put it in the bright pile. Okay. Let's see.
I don't typically do bright, so I'm learning.
Okay, I found another bright. Here's another bright, and I'm going to put this in my bright pile. Now you find a bright, put it in your bright pile. There we go. Now, this is going to be a little tricky, because we've got to do darks. But why does this go in the dark pile?
The class said earlier that it was a dark.
Okay, so this is a dark, and I'm going to put this in my dark pile. Now, Marty, you find something that goes in your dark pile. All right, I'm going to dig some more. See, I know I've got some more dark piles here. Okay, this is going into my dark pile. Now you find something in your dark pile. Okay, and then I'll have this in my dark pile. The whole point of this is that we do it together. So if we're turning on a computer system, I turn it on, and then he turns it on. So you may go down to the lab or something. If you're learning how to check out a book, I show it, the first step. My student does the first step. So we're doing this whole process together. We're sequencing it under a guided practice mode. Okay, I'm not turning him loose yet. Now, Marty, do you think you know how to sort these by the lights and the darks and the whites?
I think so. The brights still are a little new to me.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is now we're going to go into the independent mode. Now, if he didn't get the whites, the brights, and the darks, then I would go through and I would show it again, and then he would do it again. So make sure that he's on the same page with me. Now, for independent, he's going to do this all by himself. Marty, do you think you can do the whites and the brights and the darks all by yourself?
It's a lot of pressure. I've got people
Now explain. Now you're going to be the teacher and I'm the learner, so explain what you're going to be doing.
Okay, so I'm first going to hunt for the lights.
Okay.
And going to sort them. And is it okay to start another pile before I finish it? Okay. So before I finish the lights, I found a dark, so let's do some darks. And my new category for me, the brights. So let's do some brights. And dark, dark, how am I doing?
You're doing great.
And that's kind of, we'll say dark. So here's back to some whites and some brights.
Whoa! Now, if he couldn't do this independently, what would we do? We'd go back and do we-dos. Because we want to make sure before we move on that he understands this particular skill. The next time we might need to fold these, but we're not going to do that today. Thanks, Marty. So let's see, I know I have some, we've got automatic screens. Okay, so we started the balance meal for every student. Goes with your balance meal. We're modeling the idea. And that's what Barbara did. I will show you how to do this. And then we go over here to guided practice, which is the bigger portion here, all the vegetables and things right here. We do this together. And then after you do it together for a while and you think your student gets it, then you say, okay, can you do this by yourself? Show me that you can do this and explain to me as you're doing it. So I'm going to be the learner and you're going to be teaching me. Explain to me that how you can do this. And if there's some hesitation or they don't get it, Then you go back to guided practice. So this is the big piece. You go back here. If they don't get it, this is the big piece. And sometimes you have to do this 3 or 4 times before they can actually get the sequence down. Because, as you will know, our students with autism need sequence. They need, this is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do third. And if you keep everything in a sequence, they're going to understand it better and be able to apply it outside the context of the class. Okay, did I get them all? Yep, okay.
All right. Now is your moment to go ahead and take and create. What is your guided and independent practice activities going to look like? What are you going to do together with the student? What are they going to do on their own? Often these look very similar, except one of them they're doing on their own. In fact, they should look pretty similar. But go ahead and add those, and again, ask if you need any help.
You notice that I was demonstrating it, and then Marty, the student, was demonstrating it. I was demonstrating it, Marty was demonstrating it. We did it so it was a visual demonstration, a listening demonstration, and a tactile demonstration, all in one, all together. Because some of our students learn better when they do the touchy, when they touch, and some of them do better when they see it and they hear it. So by incorporating the touch, the visual, and the hearing, it reinforces not only, it reinforces the student when they hear me do it, but it reinforces when they talk through it. Reinforces when they hear me do it, reinforces them when they talk through it. So there's two ways that they can learn how to do this. And I didn't mention that before, but that's part of the accommodations is the visual, the auditory, and the tactile. Just 3. There's tons of them, but I just chose the 3.
All right. Last but not least on your directed instructional model is the link that binds it all together, assessment, evaluation, and adjustment.
Which of course is the most important thing, just kidding. So this is one thing we had to do when we saw this, but there was an S left out, and so we had to assess, evaluate, and adjust immediately before it was.
Guess which word we accidentally left an S out of?
So where are they now, and where are they going from here? This goes back, you're going back to your objective. You're going to assess that particular objective and then analyze the results. So you can use, oops. I know you can't read this on your handout, you can't read it here either, but it says maybe a task analysis data sheet or data, however you like. What's the target behavior? Help library patrons. So that's training students in the library. And that could be the general analysis you're looking at. What are some of the tasks? Make eye contact, smile with the patron, say welcome, how may I help you, get up and walk, patron to materials, say thanks for coming, come again, and each of these could be the objective. As you assess that, maybe you do an informal assessment to see where they're at and maybe target the ones that they need, or just one at a time. So you might just make eye contact when they come in, or say hi when they come in. Or you might see a pattern that they're getting most of these, but the ones that they need the most are the next step. Anyway, kind of change. You can look to see when you're observing their behavior, or if they're doing it correctly, you can say, do they need a prompt? Do they need a verbal prompt? Do they need a physical prompt? Do they need, and the physical prompt is just showing it again. Partial, what kind of prompting do they need? Can they do it independently? So if they have a consistent number of independent check marks, then they're probably good to go on that and move on. So as we assess it, we analyze that and then decide if they've mastered it, at least in that setting. Maybe give them extra practice other settings, but that tells you where they are with their objective. So you're conducting an assessment, and it can be different things. It can be, were they able to weed for 5 minutes without stopping? Were they able to differentiate between a weed and a plant 5 out of 6 times, or whatever, 80% of the time? That kind of idea. Again, it can be informal or it can be formal, but it gives you information that you can use to really know where they're at, not just be a guess or story. What still needs to happen? Did you do that? So, to follow the right ramp to help that student, so you know where they're at, you've analyzed it, you've conducted, you've have some data, you reteach. If they have no clue what to do, then you're going to start over with the modeling, the guided practice, wherever they need to go. Abandon. What are some reasons you might abandon the goal?
They might not be getting it right. Or to start fresh, start later, fresh.
Could be. Could be there could be that there are so many steps or gaps that you hadn't even thought of. You didn't think to pre-assess or didn't notice in the pre-assessment, so you want to stop the lesson then and move on and prepare again.
I hear some therapists who will like get stuck on touch your nose, and they'll be stuck on it for like 2 years, and they won't let the student progress. So that's time to abandon touching your nose. Maybe.
Yeah, some things might be too hard, or they might be totally competent, and that didn't appear either in your assessment, pre-assessment. So you just stop that and move on. And you can do this while you're teaching the lesson. You're going to be reteaching, abandoning, moving on, or practicing. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. Move on if they got it for sure. Move on if they almost have it. Or then at that point, practice and re-practice in different situations. And okay, so this assessment would also include what are some more, if they're not getting it, reteaching with accommodations, extra accommodations, or go back and find a way that you can use their learning skills even more, their learning styles. Just make it more, maybe you're using the wrong word. I had a student last week or so that couldn't get the meaning of this, couldn't answer this question, and include the word garbage, and we're like, so what's the problem, or what we're asking, what's the concern, or why can't you get the answer? I don't remember what we said, it was better than that question. But anyway, they said, what's this word, garbage, what does that mean? And we're like, so maybe they needed to use the word trash, or maybe you just need to put in, instead of saying the same thing over and over again, gives you a chance to say it in a different way as you reteach it. So basically, they've got the objective, then you move on to the next step, right? Where's my other screen? Oh, here it is. Are we going to do this before we do closure?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are 2 separate.
Okay. So assessing, self-monitoring is also a really good way to self-assess, so that they have more buy-in. They can see why you're saying what you're saying, or what they need to do better, just because they're like, if they can't do it, or they don't know the brights from the dark, so that's a challenge. Give them more practice, or then they can say, ask questions and kind of self-monitor themselves. Gives them more incentive to keep going. Okay. And of course, breaking down to smaller steps, adding steps, skipping steps that you know when you observe them that they don't need anymore. Okay, how are you going to evaluate? How are you going to evaluate if they've got that objective, if they're making progress, where they're at with that objective, if you need to reteach, revamp, start over, abandon, adjust the goal so it's still something they want to do, but maybe you're not thinking they're going to be able to reach that goal anytime soon. You give them a piece of that. So you can go with questions. They probably have to be complex questions, not just yes or no, so that you know that they're just not parroting or just saying something to move on. Could be. can be small group, it can be partnering, it could be doing things like that to evaluate if they're able to do it. Can they meet that objective? Done with it, or they need to you could do something. I guess take the next couple minutes. Do you have any questions about that, your goal?
Okay, when you're coming around, put down your, how are you going to evaluate this? It can be as simple as a quiz, it can be, or as a question, like James said, a complex worded question, or it can be as big as you're going to have them actually go ride the bus and take you to this new stop, show you, walk you through the whole thing, whatever it is. Go ahead and write that down. How will you know that they've met that objective?
Did they do it independently? Are they almost there?
Yeah, and a lot of times you can do this during the independent practice, part of the lesson. During the independent practice, you're evaluating them. Okay, the last one. You did.
So closure. So the hook at the beginning, where you're telling them what you're going to be doing that day, or what they're doing, or what they're going to be learning, and then the closure at the end are really essential for helping them to remember what they learned, to put all their activities and what they did, reinforce the learning, and end the lesson. Have you ever had kids come home, or whoever, students, what'd you do, what'd you learn today? I don't know. But if you put that ending to it, okay, today we learned about such and such, and you can do it that way. You can just tell them what they learned, or you can ask them what they learned, or you can have some kind of interesting questions, just more than just parrot like yes or no, but why do I care why? Why do you care about what we learned? And that makes them think, what did they learn and how can they apply it? It fits where, or why am I learning this again? Just repeat that idea. You're practicing this, you're doing this, so you can get to your goals, so you can do this, so you can go to MTech, or you can do whatever you want, get your job. And this is why it'll help, that piece. And what is that piece that you're learning? So you can do that. It looks like we learned what? Of course, that's just basic. Or you can do it in lots of different ways. Teams or partners, or envelopes with questions in them, and they answer them as a class and then answer them individually. You can hold up your object like your basket. What did we learn today? Just to kind of reinforce that visual. You can, and where we're going where, why are we doing this, and what, so it kind of gives them, your closure is also going to give them a bridge to the next lesson that builds on this. How is this going to build, and tomorrow we're going to learn about the temperature that we're going to wash our clothes in, which kind of fabric needs to be washed at what kind of temperature, or something like that. Or what do you do with a plaid shirt that's dark and light and bright? So, although surprise, just kind of should be a positive. Maybe that's the next one. So is finding more independent practice. Well, when you go home for the break, or for a weekend, or for Christmas, see if you can help sort the clothes. Sort your clothes out. Don't just have your mom and dad do it all for you, or whoever does it. Sort your own clothes, so you have more practice in different levels, some kind of homework or assignment. You can make it exciting, that's better, but what can be more exciting than sorting your clothes? Also, motivating. Candy is always motivating. They come out with candy, but can you think of again, expressing the reason why they're learning this and how it's going to be helpful to them. Why are you doing these lesson plans? What's the motivation to be able to do a really effective, empowering, efficient lesson plan? That would be because our students have the ability to create products. They have the ability to produce a product. And we just need to find them. We need to find out what they need or link into that. They know a lot about themselves. We can, the closure could include that individual assessment again, that how can I do this? I had a class where it was about helping students that are getting lost in their lives, lots of teenagehood or early adulthood. And so at the end, he played this professor who also had been lost when he was young, and he learned the ropes, and he was able to get out of it and become the teacher to help others. But he played the Song of Angry Men from Les Mis, and that was really empowering. You went out feeling like, wow, I can do this. So they can feel like, with the practice and the independent practice, I can do this. I know how to do this. This thing, I know how to start the mower now. I know how to deep breathe so I can relax. And they felt, they feel that confidence and motivation. That's what we're hoping that our students will find, and we'll all actually will use for our own. So closures, wrap up, review, directed release. Directed just means, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I can do. This is what I want to do. I know how. And when you know how, then you want to do it. Sometimes we just avoid things because we don't know how. So this is empowering. And closure, bridge to the next lesson. We talked about that. Okay, so what kind of closure might you add to this lesson to make it motivating or empowering, or they just want to do it? Maybe it's reward. No, that's motivating if they do it. Or they can see the intrinsic reward.
I always loved Lita's closure that she and Anna would do with the Shakespeare plays, where Lita would always just take the students at the end and you'd get them all in a circle, and then, and just tell, not everybody was here to see that. You want to explain it really quick for everybody?
We would go around the circle, and then we'd ask what they learned, or what word can we use to express what we experienced today, and then we say it all together.
And they'd all get in there with their hands, and then.
Well, it was right over that community circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we did.
And it was super powerful, and they always left, and leave them wanting more, leave them feeling good, leave them feeling empowered. Hey, I can do this. My life is better, and I can do this. Or I've learned this thing, and I'm good to go. You want that sweet taste in your mouth. Yes.
You are feeling.
So go ahead, put your closure on, and get some closure on your lesson plan while you're doing it. And if you want to throw in a practice activity or a homework activity, go ahead. What is our policy on homework at Scenic View? It's totally up to the instructor as to whether or not it will be effective. Some things, like learning an instrument, they're going to need some additional practice and stuff. Other things, it's like, no, we'll do this again together next time. But go ahead and put those last pieces on, and then we'll see if we can have any time left for a break. Go ahead. Yes. When you finish your lesson plan, that it's all the way down through, then go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. We still have snacks. We still have water.
Okay, this is your time to do it. So this is your practice time, so you're going to apply what we've learned today. So I want everybody to pick a partner, and what you're going to do is you're going to teach your lesson. Choose the person with the longest name will teach first.
Longest last name.
The longest last name, and the person not teaching will act as the student, and then you'll reverse. So you'll teach your lesson using your lesson the best you can. I know some of it you probably can't do the whole thing, but the best you can, make it as real as possible, and then switch roles and let them teach you.
You want to be my partner?
Sorry, real quick. On real as possible, what we mean is if you are playing the student, okay, so if you're the one that's student first, don't give them a hard time. Just pretend that you do not know this skill, okay? You don't know the skill they're teaching, all right? That's what we mean by keeping it as real as possible. You don't have to, like, be really belligerent about it or anything like that.
It'll be too difficult.
Yeah, not like MTC role playing.
Okay, so what you learned from it.
I have Ritz cracker bread.
And if you need a partner, raise your hand, and we have staff who can partner with you snacks. We still have notes. Because one of the things you always notice as a teacher is the minute you're done with your lesson, what are you instantly thinking? Oh, this is what I could have done differently. Oh, I wish I'd done this, or that didn't go so well, or wow, that part impressed me, or whatever it was. And you want to make sure you note some of that for next time. You want to make sure that, again, those notes you can fill in at any point, but those are some great ones there. So we're going to go through some notes with you guys as we process this activity.
All right, so what are some things that went well in your practice?
I thought maybe I would be mumbling like and tangenting and stuff, but it wasn't as bad as I Yes.
Okay, write that down. Did you ever hear that? They picked up what she was laying down.
Oh.
So how do you know that they picked up what you laid down?
I asked them if any of that made sense.
Okay.
All right, we're able to explain it back to you.
And they demonstrated it.
Good.
Okay. All right. Nathan.
Good use of prompts and visuals.
Okay. All right. Good. Don, did you have your hand? Was there a hand back there? Dorothy.
I was listening to her and made me think, oh, I want to do that, or oh, maybe I should not do that. It was a good exercise, just kind of reflecting on how I can improve.
All
Just
right.
listening to her.
All right. So yeah, seeing someone else do it gave you some ideas. Okay.
Speaking of seeing someone else, you guys had some awesome guided practice back there. It was like looking all very spiritual with the hands up and the mirroring. It was really, it's like, oh, there's a connection. It was awesome. Yes, that's good.
Yeah. What was the skill there? Was that
That was empathetic mirroring.
okay? So it wasn't window washing. Here from here.
Waxel.
I can see. I can see.
I was impressed with the objectives, at least the ones I looked at, that they showed that they were really broken down into doable parts. So really well thought out on the objectives.
Yeah.
Good job, you guys, on your objectives. It makes so much difference. Anybody have an objective that they're willing to admit maybe wasn't as clear as they thought it was at first? Couple. Yeah, and it makes a big difference. And so through the process of filling it out, were you able to go back and change your objective and modify it a little, make it, okay, then now this is a better, more accessible, more measurable, more observable, smarter objective. Good.
I love the thoroughness. She was so thorough in her whole presentation. I was kind of, she coached me all over the place. So she puts me.
Are you able to call the pharmacy now and refill your medication, though? That's the question.
Right.
All right.
I like how the whole process let me envision the task differently, because when I started it, it's pretty boring. I wish I was in a fun path where I could be a little more creative, because how can I make Google calendaring very exciting? But at the end, I'm like, oh, I can actually do cookies and ingredients to see how you go from your goal, and how it takes all these little different parts, which could be the classes, to make what you want to be, and how you can even change your goal and go from like chocolate chip to snickerdoodles, so you have a different set of ingredients. So anyway, I mean, not all students would like that. Some might not.
But you're going to be doing a lot of one-on-ones, so you get to make lots of different cookies, right?
But I think you can just be a little more creative if you give yourself time to think about it. Because I didn't think about that at first, and I could come up with something better. But just meaning in the short amount of time in this activity, you can come up with something that you at first thought, oh, I can't do anything different with it.
Good, and that is a key, because when we slow down and actually think through the model and the steps, it does exactly what you were saying. All of a sudden it opens us up to like, wow, this is a boring thing. I got to spice this up somehow. Or, whoa, there are pieces here that I can add in. Or, I was already doing that. It looks like this, and now I can do it more meaningfully or more explicitly. And again, that is why this is such a research-based model, because it gets those results because we're filling in those little gaps and remembering to hit all those pieces so the person really can master it. And sometimes it is as simple as like, okay, I really need to liven this up. I'm going to bring in some sugar. And apologies to Kylie, sometimes You have job security here, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But, yeah, but I'll admit that I'll have a lot of times where it's like a lesson where the students are like, okay, I need you guys to be able to list the strengths and challenges. Give me one strength and one challenge associated with this label we've learned about or whatever, and on the way out, you can grab a candy if you can name one of each, and they're walking out and, hey, they have a candy, and they're feeling better about something that otherwise was really a dry, although hopefully personally relevant piece of information. Great. Any other things that went well? From our panel of experts, what are some things you saw that went well?
I thought that, like, I was listening to Candace talk about how to fill your prescription. I was so engaged in what she was saying. She was making it fun, calling it a prescription. So I think, like you said, you can take any dry learning topic and make it fun.
Can I ask how?
Okay, the next training, 3.5, will be Candace teaching us all how to call the pharmacy and refill our meds.
Now, Candace, did you take the students' meds? Did you model taking them?
Because that would make it interesting.
You had to stick to every step.
Honestly, the enthusiasm of the teacher and kind of how seriously they take it, that's another aspect of modeling. And if you are having to do something silly, call it. Say like, this is so silly, but we're going to do this, and you guys, let's do this, let's get into this silly. And again, I love how Lita and Anna were able to always do that with the actors. But I've seen lots of others do it too. Where yeah, you just own it, and it's okay. You can have a blast with it. It's great.
I saw people pulling out visuals, and kind of going through that. Sarah over here, actually the whole group ended up, I think, using the whiteboard. It looked like the whiteboard usage.
Janine pulled up a video on her phone.
Yeah.
Which, again, if you're in a one-on-one, that's so perfect. Yeah.
I signed up for the real math class.
After hearing Alex.
I wanted to take it. 5 minutes, I was signed up.
You know what I love? Lita, thank you. You know what? I guess the plan is just to circle the wagons. When you circle your friends like that and you have a team like football huddle, that gives more love and aloha and synergy,
Community.
ohana feeling, everybody, hey, yay. So that was a really wonderful thing.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Joanna.
Don was working on his lesson plan and he realized that he had to break it down into steps. So he actually created a couple of lesson plans and at the starter point. And that's really great because the more you can break that down, the more, and then model it and do the guided practice, the more they're gonna learn quicker and have it retained.
Good. Great one. So being able to break it down and realize as you're going through this needs to be a second lesson. And that is okay. If you're in a class and you're feeling the pressure, oh my gosh, I gotta get through my lesson by the end of the hour. Not at Scenic View. Not at Scenic View. Yeah.
I like that Ernest, so he was doing cover letters, and it wasn't that, this is how his cover letter is, and that's it. He gave me examples and what works for me, that there was that flexibility for my personality. He gave me the keys to make a good cover letter, but also lots of examples of what would speak to my personalities. And then something else that kind of came up was my my learning style. That in our scenario we pretended to look at what he was showing me, but honestly without that I didn't learn the list that he was saying. And I wasn't pretending. It was a little embarrassing. I couldn't remember a 4-bullet list. But for me, if I don't see it, or I don't write it, or I don't repeat it, or make stupid, silly actions for it, I don't remember it. I really don't. And that is interesting to see that come out.
Yeah, and yet how often do we find ourselves defaulting into just talking to the students? I find myself doing it, we all do, and sometimes it works, but yeah, we should never assume that. Good. Any other things that went well? Any things you'd improve or adjust?
I just end up trying to share all of the knowledge that I have about the subject, even if it's tangentially related, and I have to not do that. So breaking down the steps is probably, even what I think is already small steps, or being okay with not divulging everything.
Yeah, save that for another lesson or for an advanced thing, but being able to keep it really to, does this really relate to my objective for this lesson? One of the things when we were student teach is you'd have master teachers come in, and after the lesson they'd be like, what was your objective, bloop, and what did you actually do? And they would look at my lesson and be like, well, can you actually show that they achieved that objective? And it's like, well, but they were all engaged. It was a great class, and we had all this great stuff. But at the end of the day, if they can't do it, then yeah, I should have saved that for another time. So it happens. Absolutely happens. Good improvement point. Anything else? Adjustments? Things that you learned that you'd be like, you know, I'm gonna tweak this a little going forward. Yeah.
I was just going to say, when you slow down and you really think about what you're doing, you actually build a relationship as well. Like, just naturally it happens. I mean, you become friends and you learn something about each other just by slowing down and going through each step. So, I don't know, it kind of takes it to a different level, a personal level.
Yeah, and you can connect on a personal, professional level by going through model, guided, and independent practice. Also, if your partner's Norm, not saying it helps a lot. It helps a lot if you want to make a connection.
I mean, we were serving each other. That was his objective. What was your objective? Was to
serve each other.
It was
serving
people and
God.
serving God. That was ours. Maybe that's why ours got.
Norm is so cool. A couple days ago, I was like, hey, Norm, happy Pearl Harbor Day. How old were you at Pearl Harbor?
I was 4.
4 years old. On his tricycle, seeing the planes coming in overhead. Great stories. Talk to Norm. Okay. You get to know people through this. This actually builds your relationship with the person you're working with. It doesn't create a wall, but it does help you keep your professional boundaries as well. Great point. Others, any?
I was going to say, it requires a lot of back and forth, right? As you're slowing down, you're pausing and going through these steps where you're doing something together instead of just talking. You know, and I think if you're like me, I do that a lot too. I get excited about something. Dorothy's shaking her head. She's in supervision with me. Yeah, trying to get on the soapbox. You know, but that, I'm not like assessing an intern skill if I'm just talking the whole time. But so yeah, and there's that back and forth, and they take their turn. That's a great observation. Yeah. Anything else? Maybe improve our ideas.
It's fun to see this triple back here in the corner where they have a little class of like 1-on-2, that kind of stuff. But thank you guys for taking this seriously. That was one thing we all saw as we went around. Everybody took the process seriously. It's easy to say, whatever. This is so useful and valuable, and as you apply it, you get to see that. So, thank you so much.
One thing that I think is interesting is, again, we've been trying to go through the teaching model live. Now, we could have done a training where we got up, went through a whole bunch of slides, didn't have any print-offs for anyone, didn't have a worksheet, and then we said, okay, there's the information, download, go teach, right? But today and you think about how hard would that be to go and teach. I think it's hard enough, all the steps that we went through, to go and just say, I have self-mastery now after a couple hours in a training and after going through one scenario. This is something that we're going to need to go back to again and again. And at first, it's going to be a bigger learning curve, right? But the more we do it, go through this, the easier that it's going to get for all of us. So again, today's day one in these things, but we'll have follow-up. You can think of even like the assessment, right? Where are each one of us at in the skills today? There might be some of us that have, I think we would vary. There would be some that are natural as starters, for example. For me, for those things, I go around to colleagues and I say, what would you do to make this interesting? And people can shake their heads knowing that I've come around to them before asking those things. So continue this model in your own work here. Assess where you're at and where you can improve, and give yourself credit for where you're already doing a really good job.
And just keep adjusting and keep adjusting. Here's a couple things we'd like everybody to practice. Number one, when you start up with your direct service interventions today, tomorrow, next January, use this. And number two, find ways to apply this, because it applies. And the second thing is We're going to be sending out an electronic copy of this, so you can just type into it and make it as long as you want, or as many pages as you want, or add pictures or whatever. Start creating lesson plans, at least for the classes you're going to teach. If you have a one-on-one or something that's really unique or spur of the moment, you can use this whole model in literally a 3-minute intervention or even a 30-second intervention if it's done right. But this is more for a class, though. This is what it's especially made for. If you create lesson plans for your class, though, just like it did in here, it's going to help you to clarify your thought process, be more effective, efficient, and empowering with your objectives and with empowering the students to be able to master those objectives. And one of the things that we want to get better at Scenic View is when we can't cover a class, to be able to bring people in and have that consistency for our students. Our students need predictability, they need consistency. And so if you've got lesson plans made up for the class, not only is it going to help you so that the next term when you teach this, or maybe a year from now when you teach this class again, you pull out your lesson plans, you're like, oh yeah, I know where I'm starting from. It's also going to make it really easy for your sub, because if I'm subbing and you're like, oh yeah, hey, could you cover my class, and here you go. Then now I can read this and go, okay, yeah, I know pretty much what I'm doing in this class. Or I can say, I'm sorry, I'm not qualified for that, and you're going to find somebody else better. So these are just 2 quick ways you can apply this. Any other things you thought of ways you can apply this? How will you and your interventions be different, your skills development be different because you came through this training today?
You evaluate how I can tell the students what to do.
Good.
Evaluate every time and realize some of the deficits they might have.
Good. So it helps you to realize and evaluate yourself and make it better and better and better. And you're going to know it's better and better because you're going to be getting better and better results from the students. Good.
I think it'll just like assign meaning to any interaction that you have.
Good.
Even like a lot of meetings that I have aren't necessarily like a lesson, but doing this, I can assign meaning to it, and I can make it worthwhile, and they can come out a better person than when they came in.
Good. You're walking through the atrium. Any interaction you have with a student, you sit down with a student, they're showing you their latest thing they got for Christmas or whatever, and all of a sudden you're modeling proper social interaction, proper boundaries, proper whatever. You're demonstrating with all that and guiding them as you do it, and then you're encouraging them to even do some little practice right there. You don't have to use those terms, it doesn't have to be super formal, but like you said, you can just start using this as a mindset as you go into what is my objective when I'm with the student? How am I going to hit that objective? And it can be a very simple objective. That's absolutely a piece of it. Anything else, Ryan, on how we want them to apply this?
Anyone heard of the term scaffolding? Raise your hand if you've heard of scaffolding before. Okay. For me, it helps for me to think of that term because that's something that I'm familiar. I think that term more familiar with. You can see that in this model that it follows the steps of scaffolding. That when you're modeling, right, and you're explaining, then the scaffolding's up. That's in a situation where they need a lot of extra help and a lot of support. And then in the we do, you're removing some of the scaffolding, right? They're doing some of it on their own. Now, independent practice is, or you do, you're removing the scaffolding. That assessing, evaluating, you're kind of are always doing that. I just removed some scaffolding. When you're doing that, you're kind of watching, okay, how's that going to go? Oh, I'm going to put the scaffolding back up a little bit, right? So you're always looking at, might have too much support or not enough, too many prompts. We don't want to over prompt, we don't want to under prompt. So we're just kind of moment to moment, always kind of assessing that. So this is really kind of, I think, more of almost like a dance in a way. We slowed it real down, down to here's 10 minutes on independent practice, and so on and so forth. But I think in real time, it's more fluid than that.
Yeah. So as you look at it, each piece comes in, and like Ryan says, it's totally fluid. Yeah, you may pull off their assessments from Best Notes when they first came in, or maybe the assessments from the last class, or maybe the assessments you made 10 seconds ago when you tried withdrawing a little bit of scaffolding, but you're running right through the same process. And you don't have to go all the way through and then before you can go all the way back. You can be like, okay, we tried this, okay, wait a second, I gotta go back and change my objective. And then we're gonna try this again. And like Joanna was saying, guided practice, you might run this guided independent practice over and over and over again as long as time permits. And then, keep assessing in the midst of that. So we didn't, again, like Ryan said, we slowed it way down. We took great big chunks. We kind of compartmentalized it and segmented it. It's all one process, and it's just being able to think this and think this. And as you get better at running this, then you naturally start looking more at things like learning styles, adjustments, accommodations, motivations. How do I modify the instruction? What are some things I can do here? Because all of these things will help reinforce that stuff in the middle and make you more and more and more effective. So, any last questions or concerns? What clarifications will help empower you to use this direct instructional model more effectively and efficiently in your own work? Any questions for our panel of experts or for anybody else in here? I would suggest you at least go post this somewhere. Ryan Hawks, we need to give credit where credit's due, made these awesome things. He said it's a little more blue than I thought, or cyan than I thought, whatever. He was a little more critical of it, but I was like, this is awesome. So use this, frame it, stick it on your wall, carry it with you, and if you don't want to use that side, on the back side, we got some person and strengths-based interventions for you. But other questions? Anything else? Yes, Robert.
For both your starter and your closer, general time guidelines on how much of a 50-minute class?
Great question. Panel of experts, your starters and your closers, how long should it take?
5 minutes on the starter.
Probably 5 minutes, 5 minutes at the most. Yeah. And again, they can be very, very, very simple. They don't need to be.
5 minutes on closure. All you have to do is review and say what you're going to do next time. And
Yep, here's what we did today, and here's what we're going to do next time. Yeah. Okay, good. Good question. Others, and there's that, if you notice on your lesson plan, we didn't have you do this, but on the left side, it has the minutes there, so you can plan it out. By the way, how long are periods supposed to be here at Scenic View? 50 minutes. So at 10 minutes to, Josh, I'm looking at you. At 10 minutes to, you got to remember to let your students out so they can make it to their next class on time. Even though on the schedule it does say the whole hour. It says the whole hour on the schedule. I know. But they always come to my class and they're like, we're in internet safety. We don't.
I have a question. Is this new to Scenic View? Is it something that you're just starting now, or is this something that's been going on?
No, we had actually an 8-hour version of this training 4 years ago. So this is the abbreviated version of this. But this graphic is all nice and new and spiffy thanks to Ryan. And we're trying to apply this in maybe some new ways and a little more broadly.
So I was just going to say, I wish I would have had this 5 months ago. When I
And that's one
started.
reason we're like,
Maybe
oh
make it
crud,
part
we
of-
really need to.
Maybe make it part of the.
This will be a part of all new hires and all interns when they come. This will be part of an orientation package.
Yeah.
Process.
It will, because exactly, Candace, it's not fair to our new staff to be like, oh yeah, you know that thing we did 8 years ago? Yeah, you guys should totally know that. Yeah.
Norman just asked me, what's the difference between you teach a lot in the hospital to teaching here? Well, I didn't realize how different it would be. It's very different, and I need these. I wish I would have had these skills or tools a few months ago.
Well,
But
you have
I'm
them now.
slowly learning.
Merry Christmas, you have them
Thank
now,
you.
and you are all given amnesty and forgiveness, indulgences for past sins in this model. You're all good. From now on, though, we're doing.
Globally or just in teaching?
Whatever's happened at CBQ.
Yeah, whatever makes you feel more Christmassy. Whatever makes you feel more Christmassy. Any other questions, comments?
where are they going to get the
The lesson plan, that will be emailed out. So this will be emailed out right after this. I'm going to go down to my office. I'm going to email it out to everybody or have Tasha do it. You guys will have an electronic version of it. Make it as big as you want. Tweak it, whatever. Start printing them off and put them in a binder for your lesson plans. And let us know how we can support you in doing this. We are going to do future trainings. Ryan always is thinking of this third training, but as we were talking, we're like, yeah, we'll probably have 3.5 and 1.2 and little trainings in between as things get solidified, as you guys help your units to create the outcomes and smart steps and goals there. We're going to have trainings on that as that gets integrated to the map. We're going to have trainings on behavioral principles. We may need to go back and do some trainings on things like, pieces of this or some of these side dishes or anything like that. You guys need to just, again, let us know. So sometimes you don't know. If you're like brand new and you're like, I don't know what I don't know, so I don't know what I need. But if you do know, like, I want someone more to talk more about blank, contact your supervisor, they'll let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Sometimes it'll be a unit training, sometimes it'll be an all scenic view, but we want to make sure that people have the information and the tools that they need to be able to empower our students. Because you are here today, we think you are more empowered. We hope that you will go out and empower your students more, and that you'll have a system to do it with that will be really useful and helpful to you. So thank you so much. Any closing remarks?
No, I think we're good. I think we're ending 4 minutes early. So yeah, let's do that. Let's end now. Thanks, everyone.